मैं ब्राजील के राष्ट्रपति लूला डी सिल्वा को प्रेसिडेंसी का गेवल सौंपता हूं।
Brothers and sisters from India, dear, thank you very much.
मेरा प्रस्ताव है कि हम नवंबर के अंत में G20 का एक वर्चुअल सेशन और रखें।
We need to redouble our efforts to achieve the goal of ending world hunger by 2030.
We were able to agree on the G20 Leaders' Declaration, which is a truly meaningful achievement.
This G20 confirms once again the isolation of Russia.
Russia is, and Putin is, very much in the wrong in terms of the instability they're causing in the world, the impact on food prices, the impact on global inflation, on supply chains.
Yes, you're joining us from the International Media Center here at Bharat Mandapam. This is a culmination of the Indian presidency. Yes, this presidency we had taken over in November last year. The G20 declaration has been adopted with consensus. You saw the visuals of the Prime Minister yesterday thumping the table because there was consensus that had been reached on all issues. The sore point in the room was the Ukraine-Russia war, and delegates who were there at that conference told us that there was a new draft that was circulated just a night before the summit, and it really went down to the wire. Finally, there was some amount of consensus at the leaders' level, and that's why it was pulled through. Yes, paragraphs like deploring Russia's war against Ukraine, getting Russia to leave Ukraine territory, and also paragraphs about condemning Russia's war against Ukraine, all of that had been removed. But there were 7 paragraphs relating to the Ukraine-Russia war. The fact that the Black Sea Grain Initiative needs to be put back on track, that was included as well. So there were many people asking as to why there was a dilution, to which the Indian government responded by saying that the value proposition of each country was included, and that's why there was consensus on the overall document. We also heard from top government sources that while Russia was named only once, the paragraphs on the war actually have principles which can address how the war can be resolved as well. Having said that, let's listen into some of the reactions that have come in from the topmost leaders, such as President Lula, Prime Minister Trudeau, President Macron, and others.
Your Highnesses, Excellencies, जैसा आप सब जानते हैं, भारत के पास नवंबर तक G20 प्रेसिडेंसी की भी जिम्मेदारी है। अभी 2.5 महीने बाकी हैं। इन 2 दिनों में आप सभी ने अनेक बातें यहां रखी हैं, सुझाव दिए हैं, बहुत सारे प्रस्ताव रखे हैं। हमारी ये जिम्मेदारी है कि जो सुझाव आए हैं उनको भी एक बार फिर देखा जाए कि उनकी प्रगति में गति कैसे लाई जा सकती है। मेरा प्रस्ताव है कि हम नवंबर के अंत में G20 का एक वर्चुअल सेशन और रखें। उस सेशन में हम इस समिट के दौरान तय विषयों की समीक्षा कर सकते हैं। मैं उम्मीद करता हूं कि आप सब इससे जुड़ेंगे। योर हाइनेसेस, एक्सेलेंसीज, इसी के साथ मैं G20 समिट के समापन की घोषणा करता हूं।
The Brazilian presidency of the G20 has 3 priorities. The first one is social inclusion and fight against hunger, energy transition, and sustainable development in its 3 aspects: the vector social, the economic, and environmental vector. And thirdly, the reform of global governance institutions. All these priorities are part of the Brazilian presidency motto, which says, building a fair world and a sustainable planet. 2 task forces will be created: the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty and the Global Mobilization Against Climate Change. We need to redouble our efforts to achieve the goal of ending world hunger by 2030.
Under the leadership of India as this year's chair, we were able to agree on the G20 Leaders' Declaration, which is a truly meaningful achievement. The fact that all G20 members concurred on the importance of just and durable peace in Ukraine and of upholding the principles of the UN Charter, including territorial integrity and sovereignty as reflected in the G20 Declaration, is truly a significant achievement.
I'm very pleased that what we were calling for in Bali has now been approved by all. First of all, this G20 confirms once again the isolation of Russia. A vast majority of the G20 members condemn the war in Ukraine and its impact. And we've been dealing with the economic and food consequences of this war precisely to maintain the unity of the planet. And the entire G20 also commits to a just and lasting peace in Ukraine, and I insist on these words. That's in accordance with the UN Charter.
I think it's well established that we can't believe anything that Russian officials or diplomats say, full stop. We put forward strong consensus languages on Russia's illegal actions in Ukraine, and I'm not surprised that the foreign minister of Russia objects to it. That's his job, but he is, and Russia is, and Putin is, very much in the wrong in terms of the instability they're causing in the world, the impact on food prices, the impact on global inflation, on supply chains, on energy prices, and that's why we will continue to stand strong against Russian bullying and Russian aggression in Ukraine. In regards to Prime Minister Modi, we have always had a good relationship in which we're able to talk frankly about difficult issues, and we will continue to have that.
Yes, 200 hours of non-stop negotiations, 15 drafts left to consensus on the Ukraine-Russia war. That's India's G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant. Remember, more than 200 meetings took place across 60 cities in India. This became a pan-India event. The World Bank played a very important role here. Our managing editor, Shireen Bhan, spoke to World Bank President Ajay Banga on his priorities as he took over the World Bank presidency just a few months back. And here's what he had to say about building a bigger and better multilateral development bank.
We've got a New Delhi declaration. There were question marks on whether one would come through or not. Your first takeaway from this experience?
My first take is just the fact that that declaration did come through. You saw the articles and the burst of sort of cynicism around it. I actually think the Indian government managed to get and corral everybody to the right place. So I think it's actually a bit of a well done by the team, by Amitabh, the Sherpa, but of course by the External Affairs and the PM himself.
In terms of the bank itself, the revision of the capital adequacy framework and what room or headroom that opens up for you, let's talk specifically about the headroom for the bank and then the private sector participation and the leverage that you hope that will be able to fund some of these issues that we spoke of.
So just the loan to equity ratio creates about $50 billion of additional lending over the course of the decade. The announcements that are coming out right now, what the U.S. government has put into the request to Congress, creates another $25 billion over the decade. Germany announced some things today. Others are in the pipeline. By the time our annual meeting happens in Marrakesh, we're thinking that all this put together could get us to between $100 and $150 billion of lending. Now, keep in mind, we do about $120 billion of committed lending every year. So this is important, but it's not going to change the world.
Yeah, it's incremental.
It is incremental, and that's the idea. The idea is to sweat the balance sheet and make it work harder. But there's things you can do. If you originate to distribute in our IFC, then you can leverage the balance sheet over many times again. That work is internal and is beginning as we speak. Then there'll be the issue as we go along. I call this the better bank. If I do what I need to do with the mission and vision, if I do what I need to do with capital adequacy framework, I do what I need to do with how the bank works, then the question is, should we go for a bigger bank? Because then the question that faces the richer world is, what's the limit of your ambition on how you want to drive change in the developing world? And I think you should expect that to be the next conversation at some point of time, you know, a little bit down the road, once we've got this bigger bank idea ready based on having a better bank in the bag. That's the way I'm going.
So the journey from bigger to better, or better to bigger, or better to bigger, what is the aspiration? And I know that this is a work in progress and a work in process, but what is the aspiration given the needs that the world faces today?
Well, the G20 expert group put out aspirations. They talked in terms of hundreds of billions of dollars of additional capital into the multilateral banks. I don't know if that's going to come, because it's not as though the world has got a great deal of fiscal headroom right now to be able to do this. Would this change in a year or two? It could. So I don't know. My approach to the N.K. Singh, Larry Summers report is to take it in, understand it, and say, let's get the better bank going. Let's create the room and headroom for asking for the bigger bank, which is what I'm doing. But meanwhile, let's get going with the private sector. Because even if we get 100 billion more capital, you're not going to get what you need for the kind of things we're discussing, from renewable energy to agriculture and methane to, you know, transportation, to what we need to do with carbon capture. This is just in the climate space. Now let's talk poverty alleviation. Then let's talk, you know, pandemics. And then let's talk fragility and refugees. So there's a lot to be done here. The idea that somehow this will all come from multilateral banks or the generosity of the richer world, I don't think you should do that. I think you should view that as seed capital, as the foundation on which the private sector must come.
Right. We continue to join you from the International Media Center, and this really is the culmination of India's presidency. We're waiting for the Prime Minister to arrive. He was supposed to be here at 6, but it seems his arrival has been delayed. He could be here any moment now, but before he reaches here, he will visit other pavilions. I'll ask my camera person to keep panning and showing you the pictures. He will be coming in from that entrance. He'll walk till the end of this International Media Center. There is media contingent everywhere. There is international media, approximately 2,000 journalists over here. What we are hearing, he is going to visit the country pavilion. It could be possible that he may visit the crafts pavilion as well. There is an RBI pavilion. There is a digital innovation pavilion over here as well. And these have been the themes all across G20 meetings, wherever they have been held in the country. All these stalls, all these highlights of India's digital public infrastructure, the India stack, frictionless credit, all of that, one district, one product, all of that has been showcased. So it's possible that the Prime Minister may visit those pavilions before coming here. So why is he coming here? We have been explaining that this has been a victory for India. Officials have been crediting the Prime Minister for bringing consensus on the document. Let's keep a focus on those pictures right now. A lot of security here. This area has been flanked by the Special Protection Group, which is in charge of the Prime Minister's security. You've got the Delhi police here, and the Delhi police officials have been called from all their duties, all kinds of departments of the Delhi police. Everyone has been pulled into security arrangements for the G20. At least 130,000 policemen from the Delhi police are on the streets and also in this hall right now. You can see a large number of media persons here at the International Media Center. Some kind of tea arrangement, high tea arrangement has also been made for the Prime Minister. It remains to be seen whether he will address the media or not. But so far, we have been hearing the Prime Minister speak at the G20 venue in Bharat Mandapam whenever he made those interventions across 3 sessions. He has had 15 bilaterals so far, and we've been getting updates on those bilaterals. Some time back, he had met Justin Trudeau, and a very strongly worded statement from the Ministry of External Affairs has come out saying that we did highlight the disturbances, the Khalistani actions that have taken place, that those were a threat to our embassies, our diplomats as well. So we expressed our strong concern, and we said that cessation of such activities was important for a normal and good and progressive bilateral relationship with Canada as well. Very important bilaterals taking place with the United States as well. Biden welcoming the issuance of certificate for the 31 Guardian drones by General Atomics. We also invited President Biden for the Quad Summit next year. In fact, we are learning from sources that the government is engaged with all Quad leaders, hoping that they would be chief guests for the Republic Day parade. But before we get you any more information, let's also play out this exclusive conversation that Shireen Bhan had with Sunil Bharti Mittal, and this was about the B20. Remember, he was a co-chair of the B20 as well, and he spoke about the inclusion of African Union and how we need to resolve the debt issues related to the African Union. Let's play this out for our viewers.
Today's inclusion of African Union as a permanent member of G20, which today has become one of the most important bodies globally, signals that you cannot leave large continents like Africa behind. Even countries like Zambia, which were having tremendous amount of deposits of copper and were doing reasonably well, have fallen into huge debt traps. Countries which are oil-producing countries like Angola, Gabon, and many others are also in huge debt. And this needs a reset. To my mind, a debate must ensue amongst the global leaders how to write off most of these loans once and reset Africa into the next order. By giving large amounts of debt, for example, from China, and then securing long-term supply chains on critical minerals and metals, oil and gas, Africa has been deprived of continuous income that is required to build their own infrastructure, healthcare, education, and infrastructure. Well, we remain very bullish on Africa, African growth. I mean, Africa has been growing for Airtel at 20% every year in constant currency, which is absolutely stunning growth for a company that you can double in about 4 years' time your total revenue. The only problem in Africa has been currency depreciation. So in terms of currency depreciation, it's a matter of great worry. And as the economies of Africa will stabilize, so would the currencies. With the US, India coming together, I think this particular symbiotic relationship will force, to my mind, the direction of the future of telecom technologies away from some of the existing powerful countries like China, who had taken a big lead in the 4G and 5G space. Under the IRA, what changes is serious, large investments, multi-billion dollars of investment, tens of billions of investments into semiconductor manufacturing, into various other technology manufacturing platforms, which require very large amounts of money. Today, the US under the IRA give very large amounts of money to companies to set up those shops in the US, which deprives countries like India to draw those large dollars here. If we become a part of under the IRA as an ally of US, under the IRA part, then of course these companies can be encouraged to bring their investments into India as if they were setting up in the US. That is what Japan has got, you see, and that's what India, I hope, can get in the coming years. Launch a week should be our ambition, 52 launches a year of rockets, hopefully one day reusable rockets like SpaceX. We should start to do more activities on the moon and Mars and other planets, and possibly be a part of the space station in a bigger way, along with the US, given our now friendship with the US.
Right. Yes, we have been told there is SPG movement here, a lot of security movement, and the Prime Minister could arrive in the next 5 to 10 minutes or so. A lot of security, and the security is now on alert. They've all come out, they've positioned themselves. The government photographers are here as well. So the Prime Minister could be here any moment. And once again, I'll get you pictures from the media center. Let's pan and show as much visuals to our viewers as possible. What's the mood here at the media center? Yes, this is probably a story that everyone is waiting to file. Everyone wants to see if the Prime Minister is going to say something, and that probably will be a final story for the international media, for the domestic media here as well. We have been told that this is a meet and greet sort of an event. Very tight security, as would be for any Prime Ministerial event. And a high tea has also been set up by ITC. Remember, there have been intense negotiations going on for the last 1 week or so. We also hear that the Prime Minister's trip to South Africa for the BRICS Summit, and as recently on the 7th of September to Jakarta for the ASEAN summit were very critical in terms of bringing consensus on the table. Government officials telling us that our leadership of the Global South was recognized at these summits, and that's what helped in bringing consensus. A point that was made on record as we stay on these pictures and we show you these sanitized areas by the security. Let's also tell you what has happened over the last 2 to 3 days. It was important for India to have a consensus document. If we did not have a consensus document, the word would have gone out that this summit has ended as a failure, and nothing has really happened in terms of the joint document. In fact, India would have been the only country which would not have been able to build a consensus on the G20 communique. Now, that's a headline that we really did not want. And over the last 2-3 months or so, there was hectic negotiations at the level of the G20 Sherpa, at the level of the foreign minister, and at the level of the prime minister as well. A lot of back-channel negotiations went into making sure that we have that communique at the end of the day. So this is what we are going to see in a short while. The Prime Minister coming, he may speak to the press and may even express his gratitude to the security staff, the support staff, people who have been serving the media, serving the dignitaries over the last few days. He may also interact with the international press over here. All these rooms, we are on the ground floor of the International Media Center. You've got a VVIP lounge where leaders from the Indian side have been giving interviews. All these halls which are named Vindhya, Nilgiri, Himalaya, Ganga, these are small press conference rooms where the likes of Macron, likes of Trudeau, Turkish President Erdogan, they've all held press conferences over here. Let me get in Shivani at this point. Shivani, we have been talking, you've been moving around the media center. Could you give us a sense of what's happening all across this 30,000 square feet big media center at the moment?
I think, Parishit, this is, as you can see, we showed the pictures as well of how eagerly everybody is waiting for the Prime Minister to now arrive, because we were being told that he's going to arrive at 6, and now it's 6:45 now, actually 7:30. And we are learning that now he's in the crafts exhibition center where he's interacting with the craftsmen. And now anytime he can come. What we are getting to know from the ITC people over here is that, yes, a high tea has been prepared for the Prime Minister, which might happen on the first floor with the VVIP guests that Prime Minister has. And a lot of millet snacks have also been are also on the menu. So that is what is happening. I think we showed enough pictures of how the media is waiting. So that is all we have at the moment. And Prime Minister, anytime now, we can see his arrival.
What we can also tell you is that there are a large number of government officials moving around. The INB Secretary, especially, he is here. There are officials from the G20 Secretariat, Ministry of External Affairs, from the spokesperson's office. We may just see the G20 Sherpa, the Su Sherpa over here as well. We've been reading documents and reports over the last few days how there were 200 hours of negotiations, 15 drafts that went into having the final communique on the ground. More than 200 meetings have taken place across 60 cities. So this indeed was a mammoth effort. And even the opposition, we spoke to Shashi Tharoor, Member of Parliament from the Congress Party, Minister of State, former Minister of State for External Affairs, and he also commended the India presidency into turning the G20, which is actually a straightforward economic event, into a countrywide extravaganza. So we managed to bring a lot of attention to the G20, a lot for the tourism and hospitality sector as well. We have been reporting over the last few days how the industry, the tourism industry, the hotel industry is going through a very buoyant period, and they've really seen demand peaking through this entire year of India's G20 presidency, because all five-star hotels were in big demand. Currently, you cannot get a room anywhere in any five-star hotel in the national capital. 26 five-star hotels have been designated as G20 hotels. Fares are going up as high as 1 lakh rupees per day. And the presidential suite, the grand presidential suite that you speak about at hotels like ITC Moria, Taj Palace, Lee Meridian, Shangri-La, prices could go up as high as 15 to 20 lakhs per day. So it's a good time for the hotel industry. Maybe not such a good time for the public, because there are a lot of traffic restrictions. You really can't move around in the national capital. You can't. Markets are shut everywhere in New Delhi district. So people have been advised to go out, take some holidays. So and work from home. Schools are closed as well, so good news for children. But all these restrictions will be in place till about midnight today, and to some extent till 12:30, till all the delegates and foreign leaders leave, and after that it will be back to normal. But our presidency continues for about one more month. There will be more activity. There is a parliamentarian session also, which is there under the G20 agenda. So that will also take place over the next few weeks. And very important inputs also coming in from the G20 research group. Even they were hoping that there was consensus on this document. Let's again look at the visuals over here. We're getting these pictures from the International Media Center. And we are waiting for the Prime Minister to arrive. Now, as we get those pictures, let me also tell you about the Biofuel Alliance. The Global Biofuel Alliance was approved during the G20 Summit. It's a part of the G20 Declaration. And we spoke to Hardeep Puri, Minister of Petroleum, about it. Let's listen into that conversation as we get you these pictures. And we'll be right back as soon as the Prime Minister arrives here.
The Global Biofuels Alliance is very special because it brings countries together, those who are producers of biofuels, those who are consumers, those who are interested in international standards and specifications, technical issues. Today, against a target of 10% by November 2022, you did it 5 months in advance. You did 10%. Today, you have a target of 20% biofuels blending for 2030. You're going to do it by 2025.
How will this drive the agenda of greater adoption of biofuels across the world, ethanol blended fuel? How do you think this will drive the agenda? What will be the pillars of this alliance going forward?
Well, I think the answer is very simple. The answer actually comes from the fact that you make an assessment, what is the nature of the biofuels market today? According to the IEA, the International Energy Association, the biofuels market today is about $92 billion, less than $100 billion. But it is expected by 2030 to go up to $192 billion. So, I mean, kaha $92 billion and kaha $192 billion.
All right. Yes, we continue to join you here from the International Media Center. We have been told that the Prime Minister is visiting some of the pavilions, the Crafts Pavilion, the One District, One Product initiative. Remember, a lot of products from different districts were also on sale. There is a lot of activity again here. I saw some security personnel running towards the gate, but I wouldn't really confirm if the Prime Minister is here indeed. There's always a lot of security with regard to any Prime Ministerial event. So I was giving you a sense of the kind of pavilions here. There is a digital pavilion, an India Stack pavilion, an RBI pavilion where we're showcasing UPI, frictionless credit. Even foreign journalists who do not have a bank account here, they can get money transferred and they can purchase products at the One District, One Product initiative pavilion. So we may be seeing the Prime Minister here in a short while from now, but a lot of activity. Everyone has been talking about the G20 declaration, and the government has been saying this in every briefing. There was 100% consensus on every aspect of the document. What does the G20 process really stand for? It stands for key economic issues, sustainable development goals, bringing them back on track, and also climate financing. In fact, this had been India's appeal to developed nations to make sure that we raise the ambition in terms of climate financing. We make sure there is tech transfer to developing nations so that they can make their energy transition in a smooth and just manner as well. Debt restructuring was an important issue. There was resistance from China, but we believe that a consensus document was reached and China agreed to that final document as well. But there are a lot of issues with regard to implementation, and we'll have to see how those recommendations, how the G20 communique on debt, on sustainability, on cryptocurrency framework is all implemented as well. There were at least 43 delegations here, 10,000 delegates from all across the world who came to the national capital. They have been camping here for the last 3 days or so. Let's also listen in to the Secretary General of the Financial Stability Board. Let's listen in to what he had to say about the cryptocurrency framework recommendations that the FSB came up with. There was also a reference in the G20 Delhi Declaration on the banking crisis that we've seen in certain countries. The collapse of these banks, What has been the lesson from these collapses? What are some of the key takeaways that you would like to tell countries, especially developing countries, about?
When you look at that banking turmoil, there was just unprecedented speed involved with the run on some of the banks, particularly in the United States. So what role does technology have now? What role does social media have that has changed the dynamics about the way deposits work, banking runs work? And then finally, we've repeatedly seen questions about liquidity during turmoil. So we understand, I think, pretty well the liquidity situation in the banks, but the non-banks is a little bit more mysterious. And you couple that with greater speed, what does that mean for the policy tools that we have? So we're looking at all of these, the resolution framework, the role of technology and speed, and liquidity in both the banking and the non-banking sector. You don't want bad things to happen, but when they do happen, we have to take advantage and learn as much as we can.
Any risks that you see to financial stability, your outlook for the global economy, the big challenges that we are set to face?
Well, I think in the FSB chair's letter to the G20, he outlined in the first few paragraphs the macroeconomic context that we find ourselves in. We had a long period of low interest rates, and then because inflation was stubborn, interest rates rose. That creates challenges. You build up debt when it's cheap, and now that debt is more expensive, and it's expensive to service. There's a chance that that could reverse. There's a chance the economy doesn't softly land, it goes a little bit more hardly. And in that case, you have the worries about default. So it's a very challenging macroeconomic environment. I don't see any reason why we can't make it through smoothly, but when you get these turning points, these potential turning points, that's when the financial vulnerabilities are acted on, and that's when it's the most precarious time for financial stability.
Right. If I can squeeze in one more question, how satisfied are you with the outcomes here at the G20, and any recommendations for the Indian economy and as you see it?
So for the G20, from the FSB's perspective, this was a very successful G20 presidency for us. We were created by the G20. We rely on their support and their endorsement of our work, and we delivered 10 or so reports and sets of recommendations this year, and they were all endorsed. So very successful for us. For the Indian economy, you've got a big, robust, technologically developing economy. Those are all great things. Don't ignore the financial stability consequences, and I know the authorities here are not, but it is a very interesting time to be working with the macroeconomy and the financial stability consequences. So remain vigilant would be my message.
Remain vigilant about financial stability issues.
Yes,
that would
absolutely.
be your recommendation for the Indian economy. Right. Yes, we're getting you these pictures from the media center here in Bharat Mandapam. We've again been informed that the Prime Minister is in the building. He is in one of those pavilions here. We're in ITPO. This is in Pragati Maidan, really in the heart of the national capital, very close to the High Court, very close to the Parliament, very close to the Prime Minister's office, Rashtrapati Bhavan. And this is where all the meetings were really taking place. The media was restricted to the media center. We had no access to the Bharat Mandapam. But there were many pavilions here, such as Mother of Democracy, One District, One Product Initiative, RBI Pavilion on frictionless credit, and digital innovations, or the India Stack being showcased here as well. So the Prime Minister is visiting some of those pavilions, and we believe he will come here in a short while from now. Let's again show you pictures here. A lot of excitement among the ITC staff, a lot of the ITC staff which have been helping the media through the day and cooking for us and serving us. They're all here with their phones to click pictures right now. You can see a large number of camera persons. Let's also pan on my left and show our viewers what's happening on the ground. No confirmation yet on whether the Prime Minister has arrived. There has been... Okay, he has arrived now. The Prime Minister has arrived. The Prime Minister's photographers are here. And the Prime Minister is now going to walk into the hall, the International Media Center. This is all the Special Protection Group of the Prime Minister. And we can hear the Prime Minister. Yes, there you have it, the Prime Minister on your screens. He's thanking the press.
Hello, sir.
So he is thanking. He's saying bahut bahut dhanyavad. There you have it, the Prime Minister on your screens. After finishing hectic days of negotiation, after concluding all those bilaterals, we can see the international press trying to throw some questions to him right now. A lot of people moving their boom mics inside, but I guess he's only here to thank everyone. He's waving to the press. He's walking along with the SPG. He is going to turn back. The red band that you see there, those restrictive areas that you see there, he's going to turn from there and return back and leave. We've been told that he'll be here for a maximum of about 10 minutes or so, a massive amount of media, because everyone is thinking that he may make a statement or two, and you never really know. We cannot say otherwise. Over the last 2 days, the Prime Minister has chaired 3 sessions. All of it began at around 8:30 a.m. on Saturday. He welcomed leaders here at the Bharat Mandapam. There was a first session, a working lunch, followed by the second session on the theme, One Earth, One Family, One Future. The final session took place today. We've handed over the presidency to Brazil. The Prime Minister now is touring the media center as we speak. Okay, we're hearing some chants. I don't know whether those are questions or whether this is people trying to get close to the Prime Minister. He is moving around the media center as we speak. Through our cameras, you can just see the sheer amount of crowd that is there. These are pictures that are beamed all across the country and maybe in the international press as well. This is an event that has brought India a lot of attention over the last 1 year. We have tried to make this a pan-India event, taking the G20 to all corners of the country, including to Srinagar, which was a very, very high security event. And more than 200 to 250 journalists had registered for this as well. The Prime Minister is now on the left side of the media center. There is a lot of staff. There are a lot of security personnel also taking pictures of the Prime Minister. We can't yet confirm to you whether he has stopped for tea or not. But very soon he could be coming back as well. This was an important event for the Prime Minister. Remember, we are just a few months away from the elections. And there you have it. The Prime Minister is now stepping out of the media center as well. We'll try and get a glimpse of the Prime Minister. He has been flanked by his security personnel once again. And this is one of those unprecedented moments when the Prime Minister comes out to interact with the media. He has done that at the BJP headquarters and a few other events over the course of the last few years. But today, this is seen as his success, the government's success, and that's why he's here to meet the press. No comments to the press as such, but he's only thanking everyone in every message and just waving to everyone as well. Very important bilaterals being concluded by the Prime Minister. He is flanked by his security personnel, the MEA spokesperson, officials handling communication on the behalf of the government are also here. And once again, pictures of the PM.
Sir, selfie, sir. Selfie, sir. Selfie, sir. Selfie.
Okay, he has been asked for selfies as well by a number of people here in the press. And the Prime Minister is now exiting the venue. And if we can show you these pictures, there are people running after him for sound bites as well. Just turn back and show those pictures of people running. Yes, there are a lot of people running. There is quite a bit of chaos here for the security. This is a nightmare for security personnel. This is just the kind of scenario they don't like. They like things to be in order. And of course, this must have been very challenging for the security personnel, the SPG as well, to keep everything sanitized, to keep the media at bay. Remember, there could be almost 2,500 people in this room. So they had to be very, very careful. And now we believe the Prime Minister is exiting the building. You saw a lot of people running towards him and the police and the SPG trying to stop that crowd as well. So that was the Prime Minister's visit. He was here for a good half an hour or so, not in this pavilion, but he visited the Crafts Pavilion. the other pavilions that were here in Bharat Mandapam. And then he visited the media center only to thank the international media. This is what we had been told by the government, that the Prime Minister would be coming to just meet and take a round of the media center to see how the facilities were. We're seeing officials from the government, from the communications department move around. Everyone is trying to understand how this event has been reported on in the international media, and the government hoping that this is an event that will give India good publicity, good branding abroad, and will bring in investments as well. We tried to hard sell the India story, and this is what the Prime Minister also tried to do. Let's see how much can actually be delivered on in the days to come on the G20. A lot of issues around the global economy, on debt, on cryptocurrencies, all of that remains unresolved. We need to see how much can be done. Yes, there is consensus on many of the big issues in the G20 declaration, but the proof of the pudding will now be in the eating. We are going to take a break now. Don't go anywhere.